One of my passions is NFTs and cryptocurrencies. This is an industry I'm heavily involved with, and it's a newer industry. And because it requires being tech savvy and it's newer and people are making a lot of money, it attracts scammers. And so there are a lot of people who are tricking people into sending their NFTs to them or stealing their cryptocurrency. And this is a widespread problem in the industry. So anyways, I was watching a podcast, and it was one of the podcast hosts said that, if people are scamming, if people are stealing all these things, those people, this is his words now, they are mentally ill. Now, the fact is I don't agree with that. I don't think people who steal or do bad things are necessarily mentally ill. Of course they can be, but I don't agree with the assumption that if you do bad things, if you don't care about your neighbor, if you don't care about others, that you're mentally ill. The fact is that we all act out of our worldview, out of those things that we truly believe, those assumptions we don't think about, how we think this world works. We act out of them. That's where our actions come from, is our belief system. And so certain belief systems, if carried out to their logical conclusion, shouldn't have a problem with stealing and doing bad things. And so, it made me think of another thing. See, one of the charges that atheists sometimes make about Christianity and Christians is like, if you say you need God to be good, there's something wrong with you. And the fact is that statement, needing God to be good, I both agree and disagree with it. Somebody doesn't need to be good to be God. You can be an atheist and do good things. But that's not what I'm getting at when I would say something like that. What I'm saying is that you need God for there to be good and evil. You don't get morality. You don't get an objective morality without God. So if there is no God, there is no good and evil, because there has to be an objective standard that is outside of you. If you don't have a God who is eternal, who defines what is good and what is bad, and that is the standard, then what you have are subjective human opinions. You would then just do morality based on what you feel is right or wrong, or what society feels is right or wrong at that moment. And of course, that could change over time. So something that is absolutely forbidden and despised now could be looked at as good in the future, and vice versa. But it's just subjective. There is no true right and wrong. Those would just be societal inventions. But because there is a God and there is an objective standard, we can know what is truly right and wrong. But there's some worldviews that go against this. And what I'm thinking about specifically is atheism and evolutionism, because both at their core are non-theistic. I know that some people try to put God at the top of evolution, say he started it, and then it kind of went according to evolutionary theory. But I think that is really a belief system that comes out of atheism. But anyways, the point being is that if you don't have God, you don't have an objective standard of good and evil. Therefore, you can't say something like scamming and stealing from people is wrong. I mean, just think of the logical consequences of that belief system. It is saying, like, the fact that you should care for another person, that you should treat them as you want to be treated, that isn't a distinctively Christian belief. That comes out of the belief system that all humans are made in the image of God, Imago Dei. All humans have value and worth because they are made in the image of God. And that is why we should treat one another as we would want to be treated, and love and care and not sin against our neighbor. But if you would take an evolutionary worldview, an atheistic worldview, why on earth should you care for another person? In fact, evolutionary theory says it is the survival of the fittest. It is the strong who dominate, who get to go on, and the weak are killed off. I guess that's not a moral statement, but if you want to survive, you've got to be strong and dominant and not care for another person. In atheism, there is no difference between humanity and the animals, or even inanimate objects. I mean, non-living objects. There's just no difference. We were all blown up stardust who evolved differently. There is no reason why you should treat another human being different than you would treat a spider that you would step on, or a fly that you should swat, or a rock that you crumble up to make a building out of. You don't think twice. If a mouse comes into your house or a spider gets in your way, you crush it because you don't see them as your equal, right? But then why would you go and view another human being as your equal, that you can't harm them, that you must look out for their best interests? That is a Christian worldview belief. That is treating another person because they are made in the image of God. You can't expect somebody, if you're going to believe in evolutionary theory and atheism, to treat their neighbor rightly, to not steal, to not hurt another person. That would be just your personal opinion, because there is no objective good and evil if you hold those viewpoints. The fact is it may be illegal in this country that you live in, it may be frowned upon societally, but who cares? That's just stardust. Who cares what these stardust people think? You might have to live with the consequences. You could be shunned from the community, you could be prosecuted by the government, but you also might get away with it too, right? There is no right and wrong. And so my point in doing this is, of course, not to say that you shouldn't care for another person, but that you should see, if you have the desire, you affirm, you realize it's right to treat another rightly, to respect life, and to do to another person as you would want to be doing, to not harm another person, to not steal from another person. It is because you see there is a difference between other humans and the rest of the animal kingdom and the rest of the non-living objects in this world. They are distinct and unique, and that comes from a Christian worldview. So why do I do good? Why do I want to pursue a life of thinking about others? It's because I'm a Christian. And the fact is I don't need God to be good, in the sense that if I didn't believe in God, I could still do a good thing. But if there was no God, I'd have no reason to be good. Why would I put another above myself? I would rather be the fittest to survive. I would do what I would want to do, even if that came at the expense of another. So, scamming, stealing, that really comes out of a consistent atheistic and evolutionary worldview. But serving, giving, treating another above yourself, that comes out of a Christian worldview.